All right, so this section focuses on the fact that the logarithm and the exponential are inverses of each other. We've talked a little bit about inverses throughout the year. Inverses are not incredibly important what we do, but with logarithms and exponentials, it's really kind of important to understand that that's what's actually happening. All right. So when we convert forms, we want to make sure that we do it the right way, especially if we're trying to graph something. All right, so that we can take care of what's going on with it. All right, this is going to be less important when we're actually solving an equation, but for just to start out, we want to make sure we understand what's going on. All right, so what we have to do is we have to switch the x and y letters in the equation and then solve the new equation for y. But I'm going to put a little star next to this because this comes from the switch in forms. So we actually are not going to do any solving. If you remember earlier, we did some linear things where we had to switch the y and the x, and then we'd have to move things around and solve for y that way. We don't have to do that with these. All right, it's actually very, very easy to do. All right, the one thing we do have to do is we have to make sure that we have the exponential or logarithmic thing isolated before we do the conversion. All right, and you'll see some examples down here. And what I'll say in a minute after I go through this little example is make sure you do several of these questions. This is hard to get good at. All right, so there's my y equals 2 to the x. Okay, to make the inverse, I just physically change the locations of the x and the y. Just physically change them. So I move them. And then I convert it, and that solves it for y. So then I convert form, and that solves for y. So if I'm ever asked to do this, and then I go about it in this manner, it's the easier way to do it. All right. So then these two equations, this one and this one, are the inverses. They could be f of x and f prime of x, which we've also talked about earlier in the year. All right. Go through and try these. It's a skill that we need to be able to have to solve some different questions that'll pop up. It's not like super high on the importance scale like some things are, but this is something that if you want to be able to do really well on your stuff that you're doing, you definitely need to be able to do this. All right, and it also helps you practice with the converting forms, which is vital. All right, that's probably the most important thing throughout this whole unit about logarithms.